Welcome back to the fourth video in our immersion series, in which we continue to explore the world of Scrum. In this episode, we will uncover the importance of Scrum events in driving Agile project success. Next, we will explore the essence of the sprint, its planning phase, and the power of daily Scrums in ensuring alignment and swift progress. We'll also get into the importance of the sprint review and how it involves stakeholders while highlighting successes. Last, we will examine how the sprint retrospective supports teams' ongoing growth. Let's now examine how developing routine and structure through Scrum events contributes to the framework's success. Each event is intended to support and strengthen the Scrum pillars when properly conducted. Scrum events allow teams to identify and handle issues early, align with project goals, and stimulate ongoing improvement through facilitating frequent feedback, inspection, and adaptation. They also provide structure and discipline, supporting effective planning, coordination, and efficiency. Scrum places a strong emphasis on holding events at the same time and place to reduce complexity. By fostering productivity. Having constant time and place for Scrum events avoids the need to often reschedule, deal with logistical arrangements, or manage competing schedules. This streamlines the entire process of managing events and allow team members to focus more on productive endeavors. Focus. The mental effort needed to transition between various tasks is decreased when Scrum events take place at the same time and place. This promotes active participation by enabling team members to partake in the events more fully. Involvement. By having fixed time and place for Scrum events, team members and stakeholders can set up their schedules appropriately, guaranteeing their attendance and availability. This implies that everyone engaged in the Scrum process gets the chance to take part in the Scrum events. Commitment. Holding events at a consistent time and place helps create consistency. This consistency establishes a predictable cadence, helping the team develop a sense of discipline and commitment. Let's now delve further into the essence of the sprint, a time-boxed iteration that fosters focus, collaboration, and value delivery throughout Scrum projects. The sprint is an integral aspect of the Scrum's incremental and iterative approach. It has a defined length, usually between 1 and 4 weeks, with 2 weeks being the most prevalent. The sprint's length is determined by a number of factors, such as product complexity. Longer sprints for complex products may be necessary to offer the related work enough time to be finished. Nonetheless, a shorter sprint time may be appropriate if the work is relatively simple. Team's capacity. The sprint duration should line up with the team's pace, guaranteeing reasonable expectations. Team's capacity is determined based on its performance during prior sprints. Feedback loop. Shorter sprints might be advantageous if stakeholders need to provide frequent feedback. A longer sprint period may be necessary, however, if stakeholders need more time to assess and review the delivered work. Market dynamics. To respond effectively to changing market conditions, shorter sprints could be a better choice. High uncertainty concerns can be proactively addressed by enabling regular feedback and adaptation. External dependencies. Constraints related to dependencies with external systems or teams can influence the sprint duration. It may be necessary to run longer sprints in order to compensate for potential delays. Learning cycle. The sprint duration should maintain an equilibrium between providing value and enabling learning. Longer sprints allow more time to learn and put improvements into practice, while shorter sprints offer additional opportunities to assess practices and adjust them. Besides specifying the sprint's length, Scrum advises starting a new sprint right away following the completion of the previous one, to ensure a continuous flow of work and a regular cadence. Moreover, in order to maintain the sprint's time box and allow the Scrum team to work without disruptions, several practices are disallowed during the sprint. Changing the sprint goal. Because it helps providing guidance to the team, the sprint goal should remain unchanged throughout the sprint. However, if the sprint goal is no longer relevant, the sprint may be cancelled. It is up to the product owner to determine whether to cancel a sprint, after consulting both the Scrum Master and developers. It is essential to remember that canceling a sprint is uncommon and therefore to be used cautiously. Altering the sprint scope. It is advised to keep the scope steady, to prevent disruptions in the work that is planned. But, if changing the scope wouldn't alter the sprint's goal, it might be renegotiated with the product owner. Changing the team composition. During a sprint, it is not advised to add or remove team members. The team can accomplish the sprint goal more effectively when its composition is stable. Modifying the sprint duration. The team's capacity to fulfill its commitments may be harmed by changing the sprint duration during the sprint. Having a fixed duration reinforces predictability and prevents uncertainty. Neglecting the Scrum events. During the sprint, the Scrum events shouldn't be ignored or skipped. Each event offers an opportunity to inspect and adapt, and contributes to the overall success of the framework. Ignoring the quality standards. A team's ability to deliver a potentially shippable product increment may be hindered if the quality requirements are disregarded or skipped over throughout the sprint. Now, let's unveil the critical phase of Scrum and how it lays the foundation for a productive and successful sprint. Each sprint begins with a sprint planning session to set out the work to be completed within the sprint. The sprint planning duration depends on the length of the sprint, but is limited to 8 hours. The sprint planning involves a collaborative effort from the entire Scrum team. At first, the team agrees on establishing a sprint goal that captures the broad goal that the team hopes to accomplish at the conclusion of the sprint. The long-term product goals, stakeholder expectations, dependencies, and other factors related to the context are taken into consideration while defining an accurate sprint goal. Based on their alignment with the sprint goal, refined and estimated backlog items are presented by the product owner and then discussed with the other team members. Before selecting the items for the upcoming sprint, developers review the items, seek further information about them, and clear up any ambiguities. The team builds the sprint scope upon the chosen items, while taking their capacity and velocity into account. Then, developers collaboratively breaks down the chosen items into smaller and more achievable tasks in order to create an effective plan that would guarantee the sprint goal is achieved. During or soon after the sprint planning session, developers autonomously assign themselves tasks, depending on their skills, preferences, and availability. This self-assignment fosters coordination, openness, and trust among developers, and empowers them to take ownership of their work. Apart from the Scrum team members, stakeholders, experts, or managers can attend the sprint planning meeting. However, the Scrum team remains ultimately responsible for making decisions and establishing commitments. Let's now examine the effectiveness of the daily Scrum in ensuring that the Scrum team is headed in the right direction. The daily Scrum is a 15 minutes meeting for developers to exchange information about their work and assess progress towards the sprint goal, so they can adjust their plan accordingly. The daily Scrum provides transparency and encourages effective communication and coordination. However, it is not supposed to be a reporting session to the Scrum Master or the product owner. The daily Scrum is also an opportunity for developers to pinpoint the roadblocks they face during the development process. This early problem spotting enables quick problem solving. The Scrum Master may offer suggestions or support the developers to help them overcome the impediments. However, it's not intended to be an in-depth problem-solving session. Conducting the daily Scrum is the developer's responsibility. Developers are free to choose whatever format, as long as the meeting's purpose is met. The Scrum Master only instructs the developers to maintain the daily Scrum within the 15 minutes time box. The Scrum Master further ensures that only members of the Scrum team attend the daily Scrum. It's important to keep in mind that even while the product owner and Scrum Master may attend the daily Scrum, their main responsibilities are to listen and observe. Let's now look at an important phase in the Scrum process, where the Scrum team showcases its work to stakeholders and gathers insightful feedback. The sprint review is an essential event that occurs at the end of each sprint. Its duration is limited to a maximum of 4 hours for a 1-month sprint. The sprint review is an interactive session where developers present the work they completed throughout the sprint and get feedback from stakeholders. A clear and concrete depiction of the progress achieved during the sprint is intended to be communicated to stakeholders. Furthermore, depending on the product's nature and the sprint's purpose, different elements can be demonstrated. Moreover, the team may provide transparent explanation and go over the reasons why specific tasks weren't accomplished if a part of the planned work remains unfinished. It's necessary to approach the situation in a transparent and forthright way, so as to gather more feedback from stakeholders. With the guidance provided by this feedback, the product owner and developers may consider adjusting the product backlog to align product's progress with stakeholders' expectations. The sprint review is also a chance to acknowledge the team's accomplishments and appreciate its dedication in achieving the sprint goal. Furthermore, the sprint review is attended by the entire Scrum team and stakeholders such as customers, users, and management. The sprint review's format is flexible and may be customized to accommodate the team's preferences and the needs of the stakeholders. The team is also free to choose its own approaches to gather feedback. They can encourage open discussions with stakeholders or prepare prompts to guide the feedback process. Let's now examine the essence of the sprint retrospective, a dedicated session where the Scrum team evaluates its performance and seeks out areas for improvement. The sprint retrospective is intended for the Scrum team to reflect on its performance and is held at the end of each sprint. It is a dedicated meeting, time boxed to a maximum of 3 hours for a 1-month sprint. The sprint retrospective aims to continuously improve the team's capacity to produce value. In order to foster open discussions, stimulate self-reflection, and gather insights, here are some questions that can be brought up during the sprint retrospective. What were the main successes and milestones from this sprint? Were there any particular instances that showed the team collaborating effectively? What team dynamics boost generating worthwhile outcomes? If the sprint goal was not met, what circumstances led to this? Did we run across any quality problems? Were there any obstacles preventing us from working efficiently? How can we tackle them? Do our processes or practices now have any problems? Then, how can we make them better? What can we learn from this sprint that will help us in the future? What adjustments or measures can we take to improve our performance in the upcoming sprint? With the help of these questions, the team can be more inclined to recognize its abilities and shortcomings, highlight opportunities for improvement, and cultivate a continuous learning attitude. Additionally, it is important to note that the sprint retrospective is a collaborative session where the Scrum Master facilitates the learning process, encourages involvement from all team members, and guides them through putting effective changes into place. The Scrum Master is therefore free to choose the appropriate format, as long as it ensures a positive and meaningful retrospective experience. As we conclude this enriching episode, we have gained valuable insights into the essence of Scrum's key events. Get ready for our next captivating video as we delve into the backbone of Scrum to discover the Scrum artifacts. Stay tuned for an enlightening exploration that will elevate your understanding of Agile project management to new heights.